So Hull City have pulled the trigger on Tim Walter. After losing in midweek against Sheffield Wednesday, the club has decided to go in a fresh direction. Hull fans, I'd love to get your verdict on this one in the comments down below. There's so much to unpack with how badly things have gone wrong for the Tigers this season. You know, let's not forget this was a side that was on the cusp of making the playoffs last season. They now find themselves in the bottom three. So ultimately it was this 2-0 loss against Sheffield Wednesday in midweek which proved to be the final nail in the coffin of the manager. But I think every Hull fan knew, every neutral in the Championship knew that it was building up to this. That fan base has been disgruntled for quite a while now. It's 9 games in the Championship without a win for Hull. 4 consecutive defeats for Hull in that time as well, and at full time of this game against Sheffield Wednesday, the atmosphere around the ground seemed absolutely toxic. You know, there were chants, there were boos at full time, and probably one of the worst things about this whole result from a Hull City perspective was the manager's interview after the game, which was absolutely baffling to me. If you've not heard it, he basically came out and said that, you know, we might have lost this game against Sheffield Wednesday, but there's bigger things to worry about in life than football, which it just seems absolutely mental. I mean, how to gaslight a fan base right there. Throughout his tenure as Hull manager, he'd given a few strange quotes in interviews on a few occasions, but ultimately that was the tip of the iceberg, and he's lost his job on the back of this result against Wednesday. And I mean, if we dig into some of the underlying stats here, it was a richly deserved 3 points for Sheffield Wednesday. They obviously took the lead through a Josh Windass penalty here, but up until that point, it was very much Wednesday who were looking the more likely side to take the lead. They should have been 1 or 2 goals up before they were even given that penalty, to be honest with you. And obviously Smith finishes it off in the 81st minute. But once again, Wednesday away from home, accumulating an XG of 2.16. That's been something Hull have really struggled with so far this season, given the opposition so many chances. And to be honest, quite a few of us were a little bit surprised that Hull maybe didn't make this decision over the international break. Obviously, coming off the back of that, they've lost these back-to-back games against Luton and then Sheffield Wednesday. The game against Luton felt quite vital in their season as well, up against a fellow side who had been struggling this season. They ultimately lost that game. And I do have a little bit of sympathy for Tim Walter. All of the blame certainly doesn't rest at his door. For example, I mean, Hull have been really unlucky with injuries this season. They've lost 2 of their best creative and most lively attackers, both to ACL injuries, with Bellumi and Miller both picking up injuries at different points of the season, both set to miss the remainder of the campaign. When you lose 2 players who provide that sort of spark, you're always going to be up against it, but the way he's handled himself in the media, the way recent results have gone, how many goals they've been conceding of late, I think this was inevitable, to be honest with you. Looking at Hull season so far, it has been incredibly patchy in terms of results. All 3 of their wins came during this cluster of results here towards the end of September. They had those good triumphs against Stoke, Cardiff and QPR, but worth highlighting, when they beat Stoke 3-1, Narcis Pelac had only just taken over at the club. They beat Cardiff while they were in a really bad moment after they just parted company with Errol Bullock, and then they beat QPR away from home, and most teams have left Loftus Road this season with all 3 points. And then you look at the results since that point. Since Hull had that cluster of wins, winning 3 on the bounce, this is what the Championship League table looks like. And as we can see here, no team has picked up fewer points than Hull have in that time frame. 9 games, no wins, 3 draws, 6 losses, just 4 goals scored in their last 9 matches and 14 goals conceded. On that run of form, you're never going to cling on to your job, are you? And it is worth remembering, like we were saying at the start of the video, this was a Hull City side who were on the cusp of the top 6 last season. Now, like I was saying before, all of the blame certainly doesn't rest on Tim Walter's shoulders, and I think a lot of the anger at Hull City is being directed upwards, because behind the scenes, I mean, there have been some baffling decisions made throughout the entire ownership, really. Obviously, Hull made the quite unpopular decision at the end of last season to bin off Liam Rosenior after getting them on the cusp of the top 6. Now, it is worth remembering, Hull's squad last season was a hell of a lot stronger than it is right now, and the club deemed it a failure that Liam Rosenior didn't get them over the line and into the top 6, especially after how heavily they backed him with some more loanees, high-quality loanees of that, coming in the January window. But the decision to rip up everything that Rosenior was building for a different style of manager when you were going through such a transition in terms of the playing squad as well. Obviously not being able to retain those high quality loanees from last season, also losing the likes of Philogene, Greaves, Seri, amongst others who were sold in the summer. It was always going to be a bit of a recipe for disaster for Hull, wasn't it? Bringing in a manager who was completely new to the league as well. This is the current state of play at the bottom of the Championship table now. Obviously, we've still got some more games to come tonight as well, but Hull 22nd in the league, 15 points from just 17 matches. At this exact same point of last season under Liam Rosenior, Hull already had 27 points on the board, so they'd be joint 6th with Borough and West Brom at the moment, based on the points they had from last season. For Hull, I don't think all is lost in terms of the remainder of this season. I mean, I certainly can't see them competing for the top 6 or anything like that, but the relegation battle this season, I really think is wide open in the Championship. Obviously, QPR have really struggled to get their act together this season. Portsmouth have had a bit more life about them recently, but I think will be in this relegation scrap all season long. After an initial bounce after losing Errol luck, Cardiff have sort of reverted back to the mean as well. Plymouth are coming off the back of a battering in midweek away at Norwich. Those have been quite frequent on the road this season. Preston struggling to win many matches at the moment. Oxford are in danger of being dragged back into this scrap as well. I think at the moment you're probably looking at these sides from 18th downwards in terms of your relegation candidates at the moment. I think Coventry will pull themselves out. I think Luton will be fine this season. I think the likes of Swansea, Derby, Stoke, Sheffield Wednesday have proven themselves that they're good enough at grinding out results this season where they'll probably be fine as well. So it's still all to play for at the bottom end of the Championship, but I wouldn't like to be in a Hull City position right now, especially with 2 of their best players out for the remainder of this season and with so much chaos and so much anger being directed to those people in charge right now. Hull fans, I'd love to get your verdict in the comments down below. What have you made of this season so far, and who are your realistic candidates for who you'd like to see taking on this job long term? The board doesn't have an amazing track record when it comes to hiring managers. This is the same board that have, appointed Shotarov, I'd say, in the past. That turned out to be a bit of a disaster, didn't it? Yes, we'll give them credit for the Liam Rosenior hire, but the Tim Volta one has very much been a fail. I think we can all agree. I don't know, get your thoughts in the comments down below, and how much of a realistic prospect do you think relegation is right now? Other than that though, guys, thank you very much for tuning in. Make sure to leave a like if you did go on to enjoy, and do stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. Apart from that though, thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you all in the next one.